This is All About Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things questions and markets related Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network. A collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation, all Bitcoin, all the time. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Let's take a look at some of our top stories of the day. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon trolling Bitcoin and drawing jeers from the community once again at the Institute of International Finance. Dimon saying, "I personally think Bitcoin is worthless," and questioning the reality of the 21 million supply cap underlying Bitcoin's code. Meanwhile, payments company Stripe has begun assembling a crypto engineering team to chart its future in digital assets 3 years after ending Bitcoin support. The new team, described in LinkedIn posts and job listings, will kick off with 4 engineers to design and build the core components to support crypto use cases. And finally, sustainable miner ClearnSpark spending some of its Bitcoin to buy 4,500 new Antminer S19 Bitcoin mining machines. ClearnSpark's spending goes against the current trend of miners, which hoard their produced Bitcoin as the price surges to new highs. Separately, Intel doesn't plan to include crypto mining limitations in its ARC graphics processing units, or GPUs, due to be released in early 2022, which goes against the hash rate limitations imposed by NVIDIA on some of its products. Let's have a live look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index right now, it's taking a step back now at $55,529. Bitcoin is down about 3.3% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
Bitcoin in retreat despite a pickup in blockchain activity and a long-term technical indicator that is about to turn bullish. CoinDesk's Omkar Gaboli observing the 100 and 200-day moving averages look to be on track to cross over in the next few days for the first time in 16 months. The impending bull cross circled in yellow there is widely taken to represent a long-term bull market and may soon invite stronger chart-driven buying pressure. Furthermore, Bitcoin gained 30% in October as user activity on the network, as measured by the 7-day average of the number of active entities, has increased 19% per Glassnode data. More active market participants has historically correlated with growing interest in the asset during early-stage bull markets, according to Glassnode. The current tally of active entities is the highest in 5 months and on par with the number observed at the beginning of the bull run in late 2020. Institutional participation has increased along with network adoption, as evidenced by the uptick in the median size of on-chain transactions from about 0.6 BTC to 1.3 BTC since September. All right, joining us now to discuss Bitcoin news and more is Michael Venuto, Chief Investment Officer at Terrozo Investments. Hi there, Michael. Thanks for joining us. So, taking a look at Bitcoin, pulling back a bit, but where do you see Bitcoin headed in the short term?
I think we're pretty bullish right here. I think there's a lot of clarity coming with regulation that, most scenarios, most industries, when regulation comes in, people run. In this particular case, it's taking away that risk that, there's some sort of hypothecation or banning. I don't think it's going to be necessarily Jamie Dimon adopting right here, but there are plenty of institutions that want to protect their assets or their purchasing power. And, Michael Saylor's done a lot to push that ahead, but we're seeing even more adoption right now in the institutional or TradFi world, as we like to call it.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon still thinks Bitcoin is worthless, though JP Morgan, the bank itself, is delving into Bitcoin initiatives. But your reaction to, I guess, he's not coming around anytime soon.
Well, I think it's very difficult for him to come around because if Bitcoin fulfills its dream of banking the unbanked, then JP Morgan is worthless. So it's, he's got a choice to make here whether or not to chew off his own leg to get out of the trap. That said, they are making things available to institutional investors that get them exposure here. So, either it's worthless or it's a tool that he wants to sell to other investors. It's a difficult situation to be in.
Yeah, he's even questioning the 21 million supply cap. I mean, if we were to play with this idea, sure, perhaps someone could change the code, but I don't think the community would go along with that if it were ever to fork. But I don't know if you had any thoughts on that further.
Look, the U.S. money supply, 40% of what's out there has been minted in the last 2 years. So, Bitcoin's value prop above that is that there is a limited supply. I've heard the fear mongers before say, oh, the fact that it's infinitely divisible and Satoshis and all that, that makes it so the supply isn't limited, or somebody could change the code and not be rational actors. That's the whole value of a decentralized network, right? So I think that this is trying to compare fiat and give a fear that Bitcoin could be unlimited like fiat. There's nothing in the code or the decentralized network that would suggest that.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have a pretty bold prediction, Michael. $100,000 worth Bitcoin will hit a price of $100,000 by the end of the year. How will it get there? Time's ticking away.
I mean, I still think it's coming. We're seeing the institutional adoption. In our block ETF, we now actually, because the regulators have softened on where we can get exposure, we actually now own 3 of the Canadian Bitcoin ETFs as small positions. So if I'm able to bring institutional adoption through an ETF, I would imagine many others are as well coming that way. And, we may not get the perfect ETF for actual Bitcoin exposure anytime soon. We'll probably get a futures-based or something like that. But the demand for things like Grayscale, for the Canadian products, for what we do in block, for what Bitwise does, all the things we're seeing bringing institutional investors access to something that they know changes the world. I'm going to reiterate my 100K price by this year end.
How should people be interpreting, latest news that Stripe is getting into crypto? Intel has no limits on GPU. There, more miners getting to the game in terms of the future value of Bitcoin.
Yeah, look, so everybody confuses just the price with what's going on in the back rooms of mining, of capital raising. In the last 6 months, my partner Dan Weisskopf and I have been to visit CleanSpark. We've been to visit Core. We've been to visit Hut 8. We've been to visit Riot. The things that are being done to further this change and make it so that this world is available to bank the unbanked, to move money out of oppressive governments. It's unbelievable, the institutional nature that's occurring. I went to SALT a couple weeks back. It's not a hedge fund conference anymore. It's a crypto conference. Like, the whole world is changing and recognizing that blockchain is the next wave of commerce. Decentralized works better than a centralized party, a Jamie Dimon that could steal from you. I'm not saying he did, but could.
Right. I was at SALT as well. I did notice it was a crypto conference, and it was interesting. But Anthony Scaramucci, who founded Skybridge Capital and hosts the SALT conference, said himself that there aren't many institutional players in crypto yet. It's still very early in the game, so quite a ways to go yet into the future.
Yes,
okay, Michael, we got to end it there.
Okay. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Michael, for joining us. That was Toroso Investments CIO, Michael Venuto. Coming up, we'll talk more about ESG mining ahead. That's coming next.
CoinDesk Indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. Our trusted data powers billions in publicly traded funds. CoinDesk Indexes are the standard used by institutions, and they're the key for investors looking to understand and access crypto markets.
As the company that launched the world's first ever Bitcoin ETF, we at Purpose chose the CoinDesk Bitcoin Price Index, the XBX, to price our assets.
CoinDesk Indexes enabled the early adopters to build crypto investment vehicles, and they're already trusted by a new generation of global investors.
Welcome back. The impact of crypto mining on the environment continues to be a topic of interest among institutions looking to invest in Bitcoin and politicians looking to regulate or pass laws in the space. And our next guest specializes in green mining to reduce Bitcoin's carbon footprint while helping to operate the blockchain. Please welcome Justin PODHOLA, CEO of Elite Mining. Welcome, Justin. So, where are we in the ESG debate with Bitcoin? I mean, early in the year, Elon Musk of Tesla brought it to the forefront when he said he was concerned about the energy, the carbon mining, the carbon footprint of Bitcoin, and he would stop payments in Bitcoin for Tesla until it was more sustainable. So since then, where have we gotten on that debate?
It's a great question. First of all, thank you for having me, Christine. Appreciate it. At this point, the way I would look at it is the education process needs to continue. There is a lot of different market forces that influence green energy other than just using solar or using wind. EMI is specifically tailored to do those things, but ultimately the argument, it falls flat when people put a blanket over it and say, this is what's happening, the cause and effect. There's a very, very long-winded story around ESG. And to be clear, there's so many smart people working on this. And to be clear, there's no way you can make a one-sided argument on this. There's a whole story around it. ESG is going to be here to stay. And carbon emissions are ultimately going to continue. The question is how do we further that story to prevent more carbon emissions from being released into the atmosphere? So there's a lot.
My understanding is that since China started cracking down on mining activities in particular, as well as trading activities, that a lot of the hash rate has moved elsewhere in the world. Miners are relocating, and many to North America, which is vying to be a hub in the mining industry. So that could potentially encourage more sustainable mining solutions, because that is at the forefront of many institutions and the government that is looking to regulate, pass laws in this area. And with Elite Mining in particular, you guys are doing capturing flare gas. Am I right on this? And this, explain to me how this is sustainable mining.
Yes. So ultimately, these flare gas and stranded gas sites, they're going to emit carbon regardless. So if Elite Mining doesn't step in, or others like us, and capture this carbon that's being released into the atmosphere, currently, then we are not going to be able to put our stamp on it and reduce that carbon emission. So ultimately, I can't speak for others, but I can speak for EMI and the fact that we're going to capture that carbon and effectively reduce it and create a net positive result on the amount of carbon emissions not released into the air. So essentially separating that carbon, using it for other purposes, making mining more efficient, and combined with our immersion systems in general, it creates even more green, more of a green climate in general to keep making it more efficient. So the goal of EMI is to really carry the torch and make people understand that gas is going to be consumed for energy for mining. And this is something that's not going to stop. So therefore, how do we make it better and improve its efficiencies?
One last question for you, Justin. We have CoinDesk contributor Nick Carter writing an article for us saying that policymakers looking to ameliorate the emissions associated with Bitcoin should subsidize rather than ban the act of mining Bitcoin. And I suppose behind that is, we see in El Salvador, they are actually using volcano mining, and the government is getting involved in the process and finding ways to reap the rewards of it. Is this something that you agree with, or you foresee happening potentially in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really hard one to answer, but I can tell you that in my opinion, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand, the larger the Bitcoin network, the nodes, the mining, the hash power, et cetera, the more immutable it becomes in terms of security risks. So at that point, anything that contributes to that, to me, is a good thing. I believe that the power consumption is going to continue, and I think that's a good thing. There's a lot of cyclical waste. So we're finding new sources. What Bitcoin has done is force miners to find the best and cheapest source of power, and that drives the innovation to do things like this. Now, El Salvador, they have obviously a very good untapped energy source. So to me, that's a no-brainer. That's like, wow, great, take advantage of that, because now you're going to contribute to the Bitcoin network and all these different things, decentralization, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, the policymakers need to step out of the way and realize, hey, innovation is the most important thing here, and all it's going to do is create cheaper solar panels, cheaper, wind energy, find cheaper sources in general, which is going to help the general population as well, beyond just Bitcoin too. So don't stop the innovation. It's a big no-no.
Definitely some food for thought. All right, Justin, we got to wrap it there, but thank you so much for joining us. We could probably go on, but that was Elite Mining Inc. CEO Justin PODHOLA. That's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in New York for First Mover, your first look at the day's global crypto news headlines. You're watching CoinDesk TV.